is NDC Member of Parliament for Sanarego in Tamale. He is also with the Finance Committee of Parliament. Honorable Atta, that's the second person on the line. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Umaru.
Good. Let me also introduce your colleague. Dr. Kabiru Mahama is NPP Member of Parliament for Wale Wale. He is a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament. Good evening, sir. Dr. Kabiru, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Great.
To your chair.
I want to start with you. And in starting with you, my first question would be, looking at how the economy has been managed the last 12 months, is there anything that you think this government got wrong? We'll get to what they got right. We'll get to what they got wrong later. But is there anything that you think they got right the past 12 months?
Well, so I think that it's been 1 year since the president took over the affairs of the country. The president, together with his managers, the finance minister, the Bank of Ghana governor, have, over the past 1 year, have successfully and faithfully, religiously followed the IMF program, which is something good. If we had drilled, if we had missed, if we had not gone by the program target, structural benchmark, and quantitative target, we probably wouldn't have had the kind of stability we are having now. That is something fundamental right they have gotten. Okay. The government has also been able to, as part of the whole discipline and financial discipline and, if you like, fiscal policy coherence with monetary policy, we've had some relative currency and price stability, which is also something good that they have gotten right. The finance minister, together with the governor and the president at large, generally have reduced the tension in kind of the price hikes, generally due to inflation that was at 23 at the time that they were taking over. They have slowed it down. That is something right there. Basically, on the macroeconomic side, there are a few things that the government has gotten right, but they are right on to the extent that they have remained faithfully, they have remained religiously committed to the program the IMF have as a country have signed on to.
I like the honesty. Thank you so much. Let me go to your colleague as well. The Honorable Atta, I would ask you the reverse. Is there one thing that you believe your government did wrong over the past 12 months in terms of managing the economy? Your colleague has just given you some positives. I want to hear some of the negatives from you.
All right. Good evening to you once again, to my colleague, Dr. Kabiru. I think that I won't call it wrong. I'll say that there are challenges that the government encountered within the course of 2025. One of it has to do with the issue of galamsey. That I think that we are not yet there, that we need to do more work in terms of sanitizing our environment. Then the second thing is also the idea of always we haven't reduced significantly the import value or the cost of import. And I think that moving forward, the focus should be building an export-led economy. And I think we still have a lot of work to do over there. Then the third challenge that I would say is also some of these over-reliance on our natural resources that are sometimes finite and the price are not predictable. So if you over-rely on it, I think that it's also a challenge that we must find ways of diversifying our economy. So to that end, I would say these are the few challenges that are seen in the course of the 2025 year.
Thank you for the honesty too. Now let's get into it. What would you say you have done over the past 12 months that would make Ghanaians not miss the NPP and say, listen, Abai Papa Aba?
Well, I will say that what happened today, for me, is a clear departure from what we used to see from 1992 to date. Oftentimes, government celebrates the first 100 days in the administration. And we all know that policy impact or policy lags do not happen over time. It is something that should be consistent and sustained. So celebrating 1 year of results, 1 year of honest leadership is a clear departure from what we used to know. So to that end, I would like to salute His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. But moving to why we should have trust and faith in President Mahama. One of the most significant accomplishments for me of the Mahama administration in the first year, that's from January 7th, 2025 to January 7th, 2026, was the restoration of macroeconomic stability following a prolonged period of volatility. You and I know that post-COVID, we had series of challenges with regards to our macroeconomic development. And we have seen some level of restoration of our macro numbers. And I think that's what Dr. Kabiru alluded to. Now, if you take it one by one, for example, if you look at the currency strength and inflation control, you and I know that the Ghanaian cedi depreciated a historic percentage, sometimes in a year averaging 25% and more. But now we have seen a cedi that has recorded a historic turnaround in 2025, appreciating by approximately 40.7% as at October against the US dollar, and then 30.9% against the British pound, and then 24% against euro, and most other trading currencies that we use. This clearly marked a decisive break from the years of sustained depreciation and also restored confidence in the domestic currency. Because the pride of Ghana is our currency. So if we have a currency that is not stable, people lose trust in the currency as a store of value. Then the second issue too is that inflation, the government inherited an inflation end year 23.8%, you know, when it was read by the finance minister. But this sharply declined to single digits for 11 consecutive months. Currently, it is around 6.3%. And it is even projected that it will remain between the 6 to 10% inflation band. This clearly demonstrates significantly improved price stability, household purchasing power, and business cost of planning. Now, if you look at even the growth numbers, and I think I am also happy about the trajectory that we are taking. Ghana returned to positive growth, broad-based economic growth in 2025. And that is not the absolute growth numbers I'm talking about. If you look at the non-oil growth, we are seeing an expanded growth driven largely by economic activities such as agriculture, services, manufacturing, and construction, reflecting recoveries across both productive and consumption-led sectors. If you look at 2024, what largely led the growth trajectory was mostly mining and quarry. But if you look at what is going on now, it is purely manufacturing and agriculture. That is also a positive sign that we must have faith and trust the NDC government. Now, Dr. Kabiru also alluded to the fact that there's some level of policy coherence between the monetary and the fiscal side. If you look at the Bank of Ghana monetary policy stance, for example, they supported strong macroeconomic recovery with the policy rate. Bank of Ghana or any central bank in the world use monetary policy tools to control price and interest rates. And you realize that interest rates are on the decline, and also the overall policy rate or the lending rate have all seen a decline. This simply means that we have given more money or loanable funds to businesses to grow. And that's why if you look at the growth numbers in industry, you see that industrial growth is increasing, probably because of the fact that there's access to loanable funds. And even if you look at the FDIs alone, from January to about September, Ghana recorded a net foreign inflows of about $792 million. So this administration successfully stabilized the economy by strengthening the currency, reducing inflation, and lowering interest rates, and restoring credible growth projections. Now, let's look at the external performance, Umaru. And I am very happy because Ghana was threatened from 2022 to 2024. And to the extent that Ghana declared that we can no longer pay our debt, this was a source of concern for any emerging market and even investors across the world, whether their money is safe if they invest in Ghana. Now, Ghana's external position improved during this period of 2025. For example, you take trade balance, for example, we recorded a surplus of our 8.5 billion by October 2025. And this was, in 2024, about $2.8 billion. So from $2.8 billion to $8.5 billion. And then you look at the current accounts, which used to be in deficit. Currently, it is at surplus. Now you look at the reserve position, and I see MPP always talk about they starting the domestic gold purchase program. But if you look at the reserves of Ghana, currently our total reserve is around $11.4 billion, which covers several months of import cover significantly. So these gains enhance foreign exchange stability and reduce reliance on short-term external borrowing, because the external component of your debt, if it is mature and you don't have reserves, how do you pay them? So that is why you are seeing that because we have enough money in our reserves, that is why we don't depend largely on borrowing externally. That will put pressure on our CD. Now you come to the public debt situation, Umaru. Look, a major highlight of the year for me is the improvement in our debt sustainability. IMF has raised it in all the reviews that they have done, that structurally Ghana is still having issues with what? Public debt. And by October, public debt declined from about 61.8% of GDP to about 45%, representing one of the sharpest debt to GDP reduction in Ghana's history.
Okay, Honorable. So I think you've presented a very beautiful report card there of how your party in government manage the economy. I want to test the claims you've made. Dr. Kabiru, you've listened to your colleague there, and I'm sure a lot of the things he said were presented in the budget by the Minister of Finance and also possibly re-echoed by the President when he delivered the State of the Nation address. The numbers sound sweet. It's almost as if we are Uhuru, are we?
Well, so that is basically the problem because, of course, typical of every government, they speak to the good numbers. The cause of those numbers, we rarely speak about the cause of those numbers. Either it's deliberate or the Ghanaian people have not had time to really interrogate the cause of said numbers. Admittedly, trends in the economic performance has been increasing, and I admitted I've been issued that the performance of the economy saw some recovery in 2024, and that recovery has been entrenched in 2025. And our hope and belief and prayer is that it should continue in that trajectory into 2026 and even beyond. But underlying these numbers are real challenges that the good people of Ghana are faced with, and that we've not even taken time to analyze them. For instance, let's talk, and I'm happy that he did not want to admit them as failure, but he said they were challenges. At least, let's even for the moment take them as challenges. The foreign exchange stability we are seeing, for the ordinary Ghanaian, for the importers specifically, and for those Ghanaians who are dependent on imported goods, it is good news. But for the Ghanaian economy, we are basically subsidizing, we are basically struggling to create jobs in foreign countries. That's the meaning of it. That we are just trying our best, using whatever means possible to create jobs in foreign countries, because we are basically trying to say that let me meet my import bills, let me meet my foreign exchange demands. And foreign exchange is demanded because your people, your businesses are important. And that's the first cause. That once we are complaining about the structure of the Ghanaian economy, and that since time immemorial, we say we want to transform our economy from gadgets-based economy to an export-led economy, which my colleague on the other side has actually admitted that should be the focus of government. Our celebration now, our success now is because we are managing an import-dependent economy and we are entrenching import dependency in the country. And that's the first cause of these numbers that we've not discussed. The second cause of the number, inflation. Inflation being as high as 23% is not acceptable, right? Because it makes the cost of living so high for the ordinary Ghanaian. But in your attempt to also, reduce inflation, it must be done with a mechanism that ensures that there's a smooth transition, there's coherence between demand side and supply side. You don't go on and then just focus on the demand side of the equation, trying to reduce demand by cutting on, disposable income in the hands of the people by, for a lack of, the better or the appropriate expression, by mopping up liquidity in the system. That is what the Bank of Ghana has done. And the effect of that is that people are having dry Christmas, because even as prices of goods and services are not increasing at the rate they were increasing last year, people are not even able to buy the goods and services at the relatively reduced inflation or relatively lower inflation. That is another cause that we've not discussed in this whole discussion. We're talking about, of course, these two feature into the other sector of external performance or whatever. They are talking of debt levels. True, the debt level has reduced, partly due to two things. Our debt suspension program or debt standstill program, and the second part is because of the stability and reduction in exchange rate. These are the two factors that have reduced our debt to GDP ratio. It's not the fact that government has paid our obligations in a manner that has resulted in negative net accumulation of debt, but it's because government is not paying, and also because our debt is denominated in dollar cedi or in dollar terms. Because our debt is denominated in dollar terms, an appreciation of the Ghanaian cedi against the dollar invariably means a reduction in your debt, which also automatically means that your debt to GDP ratio is going to come down. So that was as a result of a policy, the previous government took the fall. And I'm sure you all saw the demonstration and picketing at the Minister of Finance on the back of the debt exchange program and the debt restructuring program. But currently, the successes of our country on the back of debt sustainability is because of that. Of course, government will want to take the credit, but the cause of it is that the MPP has lost power, and the MPP is blamed for actually visiting the people with haircuts. Okay. And I'm sure if you want to remember some of the sins of the MPP, you will say there was haircut. But the good news of that haircut is that it has also brought our debt to a more sustainable level, which we are certain as an achievement. Okay. So these are some of the causes that I think that behind these beautiful numbers, behind this beautiful discussion and scorecard, we must actually factor in this cost. And I'm sure if we're doing comprehensive analysis of the cost benefit, we would be careful as the euphoria around this particular number. Okay,
so I want, and this is my last question to you before you leave us, and then I'll hear from Atta and we conclude this conversation. If you had the minister Atta Forson in the same room and you were to advise him for the betterment of the country, we do know that generally governments do well in the first year, but then in the succeeding years towards the election, governments become reckless, fiscal expenditure or fiscal recklessness. What advice would you give to Atta Forson if you had him in a room, where he was going to listen to you, so that Ghana would be better for it? And this is your concluding submission before you take leave of us.
I would sincerely ask the minister to hasten slowly with commodity dependence, because commodity prices can crumple. That's going to be my first advice to him. And analysts are already predicting that we may hit the rock very soon, especially with gold prices. We are on record high. That is giving us foreign exchange. That is also helping us build our reserves, our buffers. If it hits the rock, we are in trouble. Two, we are going into the domestic market to borrow hugely. And because we are so close up out of the external bucket, the government is planning to borrow in the next year externally. I will again ask and appeal that he should hasten that slowly. What we should be focusing on, use the little resources we have to expand the productive capacity of the country, the real sector of the country, and let us spark growth. Growth in a world that we can actually be export-led economy. As an emerging economy, if we position ourselves as a country that has values to our natural resources, we will be a force to reckon with in the world.
Thank you so much for the advice. I most appreciated for the time.
Thank you very much.
That's Dr. Kabiru Mahama. He's NPP Member of Parliament for Wali Wali, the hometown of former Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He's also a member of the Finance Committee. Let me conclude that, Issah. Honorable Issah, so the advice is don't trust the commodity prices because they fluctuate. They cannot be trusted. And when they go south, everything would go off gear. Also, less borrowing. I think that one everybody knows. If you borrow, you end up in a hole like we saw in the past. Are these advices candid? Is this something that you think your government would want to take on? And what else do you think can and ought to be done to fix the economy for the Ghanaians in moving forward?
All right. So I will first of all say that if you look at my opening remarks, I talked about indexing your economic successes on commodity prices. And I said that most of the time, these are finite commodities or things that can fluctuate. So because of its volatile nature, you need to diversify your investment such that in case there's some shock, then you can have enough buffers to do it. And one way of dealing with such shock is by increasing the reserves of the country, which is positive as we speak. But before I answer your question as to the way forward, you see, at the crux of this whole thing about the NPP and the successes of the NDC government is that there should be a shared benefit and shared praise. They did something and we also did something. That's the bottom line of what Dr. Kabiru just said. But one thing that I want us to pay attention to is that when you introduce a policy, the policy has its maturity and the lacks. What time or at what terminal point do you say that this policy has impacted the economy? Ask yourself this question. The whole of 2024, what was a major policy intervention that the NPP did? And whatever policy that they did landed them with these abysmal macro numbers that I earlier on stated. So they cannot be a shared glory in this matter. Now he's talking about cutting what
I thought they left you a solid foundation with the whole gold project, especially, which you are reaping benefits of now.
Moro, you are not new in this country. Umaru, you are not new in this country. Every government, when they say regime change, they talk about a foundation, building a solid foundation. The foundation is what they left us with. That is the terminal point of the successive 8-year regime that Nana Akufo-Addo had from Ghanaians. And the scorecard is out. There is nothing that you can do about it that would... Look, if you look at the IMF report for 2016, it already projected that growth was expected to be above 8% average from 2017 to 2019, if you recall. But when the NPP came, they claimed credit for all of them using the policies that they have brought. My point is that you've been given a mandate for 8 years. You've had the 8 years, and your scorecard is out. Now, he's talking about cutting the nominal income of workers. How on earth will, if you look at the Ghana Living Standard Survey 8 that was done by the fiscal agency, they stated that poverty has shrunk by 5%. How can you eliminate COVID levy, eliminate e-levy, and many other nuisance taxes from the citizens of this country, and yet you are cutting off nominal incomes of workers? It is not supported by the data. The data that the Ghana Statistical Service released, the Ghana Living Standard Survey 8 in October this year, stated that Ghana poverty has shrunk by what? 5%. In 2024, close to 2.3 million Ghanaians was pushed below the poverty line, according to the Multi-Poverty Dimension report. So on what basis are you saying that real income, nominal income of Ghanaians have been cut? Now, let's come for this gold, the exchange rate. We are getting the exchange rate because of the gold reserves. Look, there was a time in this country in 2022, a government came with a domestic gold purchase program, and they had two components under it. That was the gold for oil and then gold for reserves. The purpose of the gold for reserve was to build reserves, and the purpose of the gold for oil was to stabilize the price of fuel. Ask yourself, you measure the success of a policy by its policy objects. Did we have stability in our currency before they left? Did we have stability in the price of fuel before they left? So this current regime and its management of the gold reserves of this country is clearly visible for every Ghanaian to see. You can see that fuel prices at the pump, the ex-pump price of fuel, is stable and even on some occasions declined successive months. You also see that Ghana city has been averaging interbank rate of 10 point something. Highest we have gone this year, last year till the early part of this year, has been 11. That's the highest. So you cannot claim that government is doing artificial way of managing the exchange rate when you brought a policy deliberately targeting to improve the margins, the reserves of this country and control price of fuel. Now, coming to the future of what we should do, I think that we have to expedite the work on the 24-hour economy. That is one surest way we can diversify our economy and also reduce the dependence on imported goods. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that once it is implemented successfully, we should be able to change the demand of Ghanaians for imported commodities. The second thing is that we must prioritize being fiscal prudent. Okay. Look, it shouldn't be ordinary that anytime IMF is around, that is the time we are disciplined. Discipline is part of managing finance. So self-discipline. And I think that the post-IMF in April, I urge the finance minister and the President Mahama to stick to fiscal prudence and monetary tightening policies. Okay. We must not, for the purpose of public pressure, drill the efforts that we have achieved so far. All and when this is done, I think that Ghana will move forward. Thank you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. That's Honorable Atta Issah. He's Member of Parliament, NDC MP for Sanarigo, and a member of the Finance Committee. Let me now hear from an independent person.